I've been to many World Jewish Congress meetings. I've heard many speakers. I will say that the Foreign Minister of Germany gave one of the best speeches I've ever heard on behalf of world Jewry and Israel. And I must tell you, on behalf of all of us, I think he did a fantastic job. As we begin, first of all, I'd like to say how lucky we all are that there is a state of Israel that we all can believe in. And I, for one, day by day realize how important it is to all of us, this wonderful state, this wonderful place that many of us call our home, and Israel. And I think without that, the World Jewish Congress would not be the same. Representatives from Jewish communities around the world, ladies and gentlemen, rabbis, fellow Jews. 68 years ago, almost today, World War II ended in Europe. It's interesting that the war was over literally 2 days ago, 68 years ago. As Auschwitz, Treblinka, Bergen-Belsen were liberated, the world began to realize the unimaginable depth of our loss. As the pictures of the bodies and the ovens were transmitted around the globe, the entire world saw what happened when we turn a blind eye to anti-Semitism. 68 years ago, no one would have thought once again that there would be that type of anti-Semitism. 3 decades after the war, no sane person wanted to be associated with what the Nazis stood for. And they were very quiet. Yet today, 68 years later and 3 generations later, that same hatred has come back. And for the first time, in many ways, through these different parties, it's become socially acceptable. People have been able to say things that would never, ever have been able to be said in the past after World War II. Last night I spoke about some of the things that are happening today to the Jewish community here in Hungary. Unfortunately, even with everything happening, we did not hear words about Jobbik and what they're doing from the other side. It is a shame because it made us realize more and more that it's more important for many governments to placate a certain group of voters than it is to say the truth. And once again, we see not only here in Hungary, but throughout the world, that nothing is being done. The president of Iran brags about destruction of a Jewish state, and the world does nothing. Hezbollah kills Jews in Israel, Bulgaria, and as far away as Argentina. And yet, the world does nothing. You heard today when the question was asked about Hezbollah and the European Union. You heard a true friend of Israel and the Jewish people say, we need more proof. Bulgaria has given proof. And when I spoke to President Obama about this, he says, look, I've seen the proof, it's there. But again, nothing will happen. A new president of Egypt has using some of the most primitive language on anti-Semitism. People say things, but the world does nothing. Young Jews are attacked because they wear yarmulkes. And in Paris, a young man is tortured and killed for one reason alone, because he was Jewish. And the world does nothing. This is our job of the World Jewish Congress, and we will certainly not stand by. It is our job to stand up and say to the world, you have to do something. And we will stand up. This is our major pledge for the future. We have the means, we have the power, and we will act. The fact is, in the world today, there is no other Jewish organization that has the strength to combat this hatred on a worldwide basis. Over the past 5 years, I have traveled to 54 countries. I got a lot of mileage. I met with heads of state, from the Hungarian Prime Minister Orban to presidents, and let me tell you that what I've heard over and over again are the platitudes. Yes, we understand the problems of Israel. Yes, we must do something. But yet, nothing is being done. We must demand, we must act. When we saw Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, may he rest in pieces. We spoke to him about anti-Semitism, and we asked him to write a letter to his people saying there is no room in Latin America for anti-Semitism. And Jack, you were there. He actually wrote the letter. He wrote the letter with Brazil and Argentina. I don't know what good it did, but at least it was a statement. In Cologne, I had the great honor of speaking in the synagogue about circumcision. It was one of my most unique speeches, and I thank the Foreign Minister for joining me. I must tell you, it was a speech very difficult to write, but interesting enough, the German government came in and reversed some of the decisions. I must say that I hope never again to have to give a speech like that. Let me say, the second major thing we're facing is what's happening to the delegitimization of Israel. The Arab states realized they could not defeat Israel militarily. They could not defeat Israel economically. So they decided the only way they can win is to fight with Israel politically. They are trying to tell the world that Israel is illegitimate, does not exist. They are believing that if they say this enough times, all of a sudden this lie becomes a reality. The question is, what do we do? They are using the UN as their place. They're putting pressure on countries. We saw last year that 2 countries who have stood by Israel France, and Italy, at the last minute, voted for the Palestinians for observer status. Frankly, they had agreed before the vote to abstain like everyone else in Europe. They changed it because of pressure, Muslim pressure. It's interesting. No other country in the world is being attacked as being illegitimate. No country. And they've singled out Israel. And the fact is that they're looking for the UN to do their work for what can be done, but cannot be done at the table. Unless they believe that the UN will not grant the peace process, they will never come to the table. Now, much of this venom, much of what's going on, is being funded by one country, and that's Iran. They fund Hamas, they fund Hezbollah, they fund terror throughout the world. The question is, what can be done? What can be done to stop Iran from having nuclear weapons? The United States has promised, as in many countries in the world, that Iran will never have nuclear weapons. The time is running out to do something. And my fear is that by the time it's decided, it may be too late. One of the things we have to do, in the case of America, in the case throughout the world, we must pressure, great pressure, on countries to do something, to stand up. And the real aspect is, how do we do it? We do it through newspapers, we do it through politics, we do it through many different areas. Many countries are afraid to stand up. They're afraid because they fear terror, they fear retribution. It's the old fear of appeasement and saying what can be done. We learned the hard way in the 1930s that appeasement does not work. Appeasement led very much to World War II, the Holocaust, and destruction of 6 million people. I often wonder what would have happened if there had been Israel. What would have happened if Great Britain and France had stood up and said no appeasement? What would have happened when the Nazis moved into the Rhineland? We stopped them. We will never know. What we do know is that the road taken to appeasement doesn't work. I am therefore looking for 6 different commissions from the World Jewish Congress that will combat these various problems. The first, a legal commission. What I've seen throughout the world is that newspapers and magazines and TV, people can say things about Israel that are libelous. We've seen people go into grocery stores and take items that were made in Israel and throw them on the ground. We have seen people take actions that under normal circumstances they should be sued for. This legal commission will be headed by 3 of the outstanding lawyers in the world. And they will work together with lawyers throughout the world to bring anything that happens, will bring suit. Bring suit about newspapers, TV, bring suit against individuals who commit acts. We won't win many of these suits, but what it means is that they will have to spend the time and the effort defending themselves, and they'll think twice about what they say. Also, the second commission is a question of interfaith. We have started very successfully to work with Christians and Muslims working together. I myself have met with the Pope several times, and I had one meeting with Muslim clerics. It's a hard road, but this commission can do a great deal of opening up what can be done between the faiths. There will be a new public relations commission, Hasbara. Frankly, this is a commission that I and several others will head. And frankly, this is the commission where we'll pull together the 6 or 7 key advertising agencies in the world. It turns out that the 6 largest advertising agencies in the world are all run by Jewish people. I don't know why that happens. But frankly, I spend more money on haircuts than Israel spends on Hasbara. The fact is that Israel has done a very poor job on Hasbara, and what we're going to do is we're going to come after them and redefine what we stand for. We can make speeches to each other. The fact is we need to speak to the world about what we stand for. Also, there are those who deny the Holocaust. There are those who say it was only 200,000, 300,000 people. You heard last night from a priest talking about the Holocaust. It's all over. We will have a major commission called the Holocaust Memory Commission. This will remind the world what happened and remind the world over and over again what happens if you have appeasement. There'll be a business advisory commission. These are people that the strength of business as it relates not only to Iran, but relates to the world and what can be done. And these commissions will have a whole new and dynamic things. There will also be a commission looking to restitution with the WJRO, which I head. And frankly, there is so much land, there's so much art, there's so much unclaimed things. In many ways, this land, this art, these properties are in many ways still the last prisoners of the last war. And this commission will look into it and make major changes. Lastly, we are looking to new dynamic vice presidents who will advise and help me in what I'm doing. In many ways, this has to be a total communal effort throughout the world. It's often said all Jews are responsible for one another. And this very much has been the motto for the Jewish Congress for the last 77 years. That's why we exist. But there's one critical lesson we have to learn from history, and that we must never forget. When the Second Temple fell to the Romans, it was not because the Romans were able to breach the walls. It was because Jews were fighting each other on the walls. The greatest weakness we have is not what happens outside, it's what happens within each other. We have survived against all odds. We have survived inquisitions, pogroms, extermination. We have done this because we have stood together. We have watched out for one another. And when outsiders tried to destroy us, we have protected each other. But then we must fight, and we must not fight with each other because we're only aiding our enemies. If you have a criticism, keep it in this room. or keep it between us. I must tell you, I cannot do it alone. I'm doing everything I can to try to act in one voice. And I reach out to everybody and say, please help. Please help, because we're each other's keeper. We have fought, Jews have fought to protect Israel. We are standing by their side. And we like to tell Israel, we are with you, we stand with you, and you are not alone. Just as our fathers and grandfathers and generations took out and protected the Jewish state, like our forebears, we must do everything we can to protect each other and stand together. I'm honored to be your president, and I thank you very much for the faith you've paid me. God bless you all.